Awful, uninspired, and mind-numbingly boring. Yep, that's Rogue One in a nutshell, at least for me. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, was beloved by fans and critics when it was released in 2016. Which is fine. You're just as entitled to say it's great just as much as I'm entitled to say it's awful and the worst Star Wars movie, including the prequels. And yes, even including Attack of the Clones.
What?
Sure, the dialogue is awful, we'll come back to that. In fact, there's plenty of things that are awful in Attack of the Clones, but I'd still wager it's better than Rogue One, and here's why. Characters. George Lucas may have given his Clones cast some absolute clangers.
I don't like sand.
I haven't felt you this tense since we fell into that nest of gundogs.
I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me.
But if we break down each movie, Clones is the only one that commits to any sort of meaningful character development. Let's look at the two biggest moments for both protagonists, Jyn Erso and Anakin Skywalker, when they each have to watch the death of a beloved parent. In Rogue One, Jyn Erso agrees to help find her father, Galen Erso, for the Rebel Alliance. Having not seen him in years, the moment when they finally meet should be something important, but Galen's untimely death is glossed over and doesn't have any real impact on the plot. Jyn never gets a moment to grieve or feel the pain of losing her parent. Anakin Skywalker, meanwhile, goes through possibly his most important turning point in the entire saga, bar his eventual redemption at the conclusion of the original trilogy. After tracking down his mother to a Tusken Raider camp, Anakin is forced to watch her die in front of him.
Everything. I love.
This is emotionally resonant for two reasons. We know Anakin promised her he'd come back and free her. We also know that he's an incredibly powerful Jedi Knight. Despite this, he can't save her. The frustration he feels is one the audience can find empathetic. We get a further payoff with this when Anakin reunites with Padme.
I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals.
This entire subplot helps set up Anakin's eventual turn to the dark side, his inability to handle emotions, and his need to confide in Padme. The character will end up becoming his only emotional outlet as the Jedi Order continues to frustrate him. Unlike Rogue One, this parental death actually means something, and it has a huge impact on Anakin's arc throughout the prequels. If we were to remove the parental subplot from Rogue One, nothing would really change. But we can't say the same of Attack of the Clones. We've been here before. When The Force Awakens was released in 2015, it drew massive amounts of criticism for being a rehash of A New Hope, a criticism that remains an albatross around its neck to this very day. But Rogue One seems to navigate around any accusations of unoriginality, and I find this even more baffling when we compare it to Attack of the Clones. If you'd not seen Rogue One before, and I showed you any of the scenes on Jeddah, would you assume that it's Tatooine? Now what about Geonosis? What rain-soaked planet is more interesting? Edu or Camino? And it's not just planets either. In Clones we get introduced to the clone troopers, along with all the new ships and walkers. In Rogue One we get one new rebel ship, a slight variation on the classic AT-AT, and black stormtroopers that do nothing. I just can't help feeling that we've been here before. Rogue One was touted as a war film, and it was claimed that it would feel different to every Star Wars film that came before it. But does it? It ditches the title crawl, but the same tropes are all here. The Han Solo, two Han Solos, the snarky protocol droid, we even have, for all intents and purposes, a Jedi. The last one is the most irritating for me because getting to see all the times between episodes 3 and 4 leaves room to explore how the people in this universe think and act when Jedi have all but been forgotten. But what's stopping Chirrut Imwe from just wielding a lightsaber? Plot-wise, he exhibits all the same skills and roles a Jedi would on the team. What's the point on selling us in a time period without the Force when you're just going to find a contrived way to wedge Antilles it in anyway? Spectacle and tension. Rogue One apologists consistently bring up the third act of the movie as its saving grace. A large-scale battle sequence set on Scarif, it does have some scale, and on paper it sounds like it could be a spectacular fight. But when we actually break down this sequence in comparison to the Geonosis battle, it's clear to see that the latter builds tension in a much more satisfactory way. I think the easiest way to compare the two is to look at how both films structure the arrival of the fleets. In Rogue One they go in alone, assuming they'll receive no backup. And then during the action on Scarif, we cut back to the Rebel Council, who decide to help them after all. We then spend an entire scene watching the rebels suit up, fly away, and arrive at the planet. In episode 2, we don't get any confirmation that the clones are coming. The cavalry have already arrived in the form of a team of Jedi, but they've been cut down to just a few fighters. Circled and closed off, the film really tries to sell us on the fact that there's no way out.
It is finished. Surrender, and your lives will be spared.
We will not be hostages to be bartered, Dooku.
Then, I'm sorry, old friend.
Until Yoda makes a spectacular entrance and saves their bacon at the last second.
Look!
To build suspense, you need to stretch the rubber band as far as it will go. This happens on Geonosis but not on Scarif. We explicitly see and know that backup is coming, so there's zero tension. We know the characters are going to be okay. Clones stretches the rubber band until it's just about to snap. When it comes down to it, Clone's conclusion is just much more exciting. It boasts a gladiatorial match with 3 brilliantly designed monsters, a battle with the most on-screen Jedi we've ever seen, and a small-scale duel between the film's main characters to top it all off. What does Rogue One have? A really boring heist in which they climb out of a vault, another character attempting to hook up a battery, and another 2 literally trying to flip a switch.
Surely you can do better.
Considering how momentous this raid is meant to be, is a digital upload of the plans the most exciting way to end it? Now, I think it's very important to note that I was 6 when Attack of the Clones came out. This movie, out of all the Star Wars prequels, holds a special nostalgic place for me, even as I get older and I see exactly what everyone responded so negatively to. So maybe I can look on Rogue One as an adult and judge it to the same standard I hold modern movies, whereas I'm always going to have a little bit of fondness for Attack of the Clones. But forgetting nostalgia for a second, isn't the fall of Anakin Skywalker a much more interesting story to tell than who stole the Death Star plans? When I watch Rogue One, I don't feel anything. But even Attack of the Clones' worst, I get Obi-Wan Kenobi snarking all over the place, dodging a laser fire in an asteroid field.
Oh, yes.
1 minute of Vader being a badass isn't enough to make up for this near total absence in the rest of Rogue One. Having characters perish doesn't make me suddenly start caring about them or finding them likeable. And stating the movie's theme,
Hope, hope, hope,
isn't going to make me feel invested. For all its faults, Attack of the Clones tries to evoke emotions, it tries to give the audience something new. There's fun to be had here, and in my humble opinion, a Star Wars story worth telling.